Where is it located? Concord Stage Road, 701 Concord Stage Road, tax map 403, lot 3 in the commercial zone. Mr. Anthony.
Hi, my name is Anthony Costello. I'm with AC Engineering Consulting, and I'm representing Gunnar Dunn LLC tonight. This is a continuation from a meeting we had back in June for a site plan for a storage facility for their gutter company. I handed out an outline, you guys, of kind of what we went over at the last meeting, and what and if things have been addressed. So I'd like to just go over that with you guys. The first issue that the board had was the zoning board approval. I represented that at the zoning board meeting, the ZBA had requested that we keep certain distances from the wetland as it was shown on the plan that was presented to them. And the board had asked me to add that to the note, the ZBA note. When I pulled the actual ZBA approval, which I included it with the paper I just gave you, it doesn't mention anything about the distances on there. So I don't know if you still want me to add the distances, even though it wasn't part of the ZBA notice of decision.
Yeah, it says as requested. You must have requested a number.
I assume it's.
No, we had a plan that showed the same distances that are shown on this plan. There are two distances on the site plan. And I wasn't at the meeting. I didn't represent, the owners represented themselves. And what I was told was that during the discussion, the ZBA said that they wanted us to maintain those distances that was shown to them on our site plan here. They didn't want us to encroach any more than what was shown. When we came here, the board had said that they wanted those, and I thought those distances were actually put on the notice of decision, on the ZBA notice of decision. And I think I represented that at the meeting, that it was on the notice of decision. So when I pulled the notice of decision, there aren't any distances on there. So I didn't add anything on it, but I am more than willing to add it if you guys still want me to add the distances, even though it doesn't say that in the notice of decision.
Your site plan shows 13.5 and 15.6
Correct. That's,
on this,
yeah.
Okay.
And that's the same plan that was given to the ZBA. I just didn't know if you actually wanted it put in the notes. Craig, on the notes,
I see what you mean.
on the
Okay.
ZBA notes, I think near the top right, it talks about that it was granted, but I believe that the planning board had mentioned that you would want me to actually put it in that note.
I think it should be in that note, and I think the dimensions should be shown on the grading utility plan too.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows what's
Hey.
going on.
Yep, no problem.
Hopefully be less, chance of a mess.
Yep.
Probably best enough. Pardon me?
Is the question he's asking reference to here?
We're gonna get there, I hope. Well, we are.
Yeah, what I was referencing is what was just discussed here at the last meeting with the board. That was one of your concerns. I just wanted to tell you why it's not on the plan. I just wanted to verify that you actually do, even though it's not actually on the notice of decision from the ZBA. So we can add that, that's not a problem. Let's skip number 2, since that'll probably be longer. 3, you had concerns about adding a Knox box for the gates for the fire departments, so they'd be
Yes.
able to get through. So we added a note on the site plan, it's note 7, specifying that there'd be Knox boxes on the gates. They were looking for the existing septic approval and operation approval with dates, and that's something that we will add. I added a note 12 that's left blank, it just has the approval, so I'll add that note after we get through this phase of the process. The same thing with the DOT curb cut. Once this gets approved, I'll submit these final plans to DOT to get an updated curb cut. We'll add that to the plan. Concern about the disturbance within the state's right-of-way. There's a bunch of disturbed land, so I modified note 7 to include that the area that's disturbed inside the state right-of-way be loamed and seeded. And then number 7, which looks like it got broken up because I don't know what a water lie is, but we had a 2-inch water line proposed, and I changed it to a 1-inch line. So those are the concerns that the planning board had, other than the detention pond outlet. And the concern with the board was where it was outletting. So we sent it out to Keach Nordstrom for review, and we got back their comments, but none of the comments addressed the outlet of the detention pond. So
No, they didn't.
I remember I had asked at the end, I think one of the last things I spoke of was if they didn't have any issues with the detention pond, are we gonna have further discussion about things? And I think the board said no. But then we get a comment list back from Keach Nordstrom, that's 11 comments that don't have to do with the drainage.
It's Steve Keach. What do you
I know, I know Steve. Steve's a great guy.
He is.
So the question is
He's a
that...
Green Bay Packer fan, too.
Really? Well, maybe I don't like him so much now. So the question is, do we want to go over their review comments, even though that they're not related to the drainage? I will say that I have made changes to the plans based on those comments, but there are some things that we haven't done. But if you want to go through that, I can go through those
Yes.
items with you.
I would like to.
Okay, so in that case, I've got more printouts for you. You guys might all have to share. So these are Steve's comments, and then what we've done. So this is just, I didn't, it's not that formal, but it's got the list of what he had made for comments and what we've done. So the first one that he's talking about, the curb cuts, and we just talked about that.
Yep.
So that's not an issue. The zoning, so we talked about zoning matter 1 has already been approved, so there's not really a comment there. Number 2 was something that the board had discussed about parking.
I talked to the code enforcement officer, and he said you didn't need a special exception, so you don't need a special exception.
Okay, we don't need to talk about that then. So
Right.
we're done with number 2. Perfect. All right, so now we go into planning design matters. Adding the wetlands stamp to the plan, we'll have that on the final set of plans, we'll have the stamp on there. He had an issue with note 1, the way it was worded. I think I had it worded the same as what was on the phase 1 part of the project. So I modified note 1 to take some things out and add things that are more specific to this project. Recommend a note be added to the drawing for the proposed commercial signage. I added a note, it's on site plan, it's note number 8, regarding the signs to adhere to the zoning board requirements for signs. He had comments about adding the radius dimensions for all the pavement curves and flares. We can add that if the board feels it's necessary. It's mostly just return curves for like parking. That's open for discussion. Does the board want to see the radius for the curves on the plan?
What do you think?
Are you paving this whole thing?
Probably the right of way to be paving. Or, and eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It's gonna be paved, I think, yes.
Okay.
If it was gonna be gravel, I was gonna say no. If you're gonna pave
Right.
it, for them to pave it right, they probably gotta be, yeah.
All right, that's easy enough. Next comment, we recommend expanding the drawing to specify installation of American Disabilities Act compliant pavement markings and signage at proposed accessible parking space. Those details are added on the detail sheet 2, which you guys have a copy of. Yeah, this is one that we don't, I don't necessarily agree with. He wants us to add a one-way only sign or do not enter sign at the, I don't know what the, it may be in Manchester when you're gonna be having all kinds of traffic going through, but this is gonna be just employees and, so right here.
So he's talking about, it would have to
He's
be
talking
by
about putting a
the,
sign here so that cars won't come out this way.
Right.
or by the building, you can do
No,
it
this
right.
is two-way here.
No, over by the new building,
Yeah.
where it's narrow right there, where it goes through, right there. I
Well,
mean, you
either
could do
way.
it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't see what the, I kind of don't see
Yeah.
what the point is. It's gonna be employees only, and there are gonna be very minimal, the traffic coming through here is not gonna be that. How many trucks are you guys expecting a day or a week?
Once a week.
Once a week. So I don't really see the, like, if you see 2 cars come, they're all gonna be coming and going at the same time. So I think it's just an added cost that's not necessary. Open to hear what the board would like to say on that.
I don't care one way or the other personally.
No, I mean,
mean,
that-
it's only-
so you got a gate you're putting up there.
Correct.
Is the gate gonna be electrically operated, or is that gonna be, what's the,
It's open during the day, then closed during the winter especially, closed at night probably.
maybe at the gate, instead of a one-way sign, maybe at the gate on one of the bollards, put a post employees only or something?
I say don't worry, but the whole thing's only 120 feet long.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing, you can see a car coming.
I mean, it's from here to my truck.
Yeah, it's,
It's flat.
Yeah, it's flat, it's only 100 feet
Yeah.
long.
so I don't think it's necessary. That's why we didn't propose one. It seemed like overkill. If it was a different type of business where customers were gonna be going back there, I can understand that. But your employees are gonna be coming in, they'll be out at work, the deliverers will be coming in while they're out, or the delivery, and then the employees will be coming, leaving at night. So, everyone's gonna be moving in the same direction pretty much at the same time, so.
My thought is it's only 120 feet long, you're gonna see somebody coming at you, the road's narrow, you're not gonna go drive in there.
Yeah.
I hope. I hope.
So we're all set with not
Yeah,
adding that?
We'll skip
Yeah.
that.
Okay. The propane tank was labeled on the grading utility sheet. He wanted me to label it on the site plan also, so that has been added to sheet 2, which is the first sheet you're looking at. No, you have the right one.
Yep, I don't care.
So that's been added. He's talking about the septic system and putting in a tank. Because the state requires a minimum 2% slope from a building to a tank. And the existing tank is located by the existing house, and he's concerned that the pitch at 2% might not be enough. It might be too flat. My theory on this is wait for the site contractor to go by and shoot the grades, and the absolute worst case scenario is they would pump it if they needed to. But I think that if they needed to add a tank, it's just something that they would do while they're in the construction process. I don't know if designing it now is, to me, it's gonna be easier when they start opening things up and seeing where the actual elevations of things are. Because if the existing tank is 5 feet below the ground, then there's not gonna be any problems at all. And if there is, we can add a tank and, later on.
Yeah, you're gonna,
We're gonna need a septic approval anyways.
you'll be
for
dealing with
the-
DES and that anyway, so.
Yeah.
Right.
So nothing's been done on our end of it.
Okay.
Don't know if the board wants us to do something about it or
Well, it's covered under note 12, right?
Yes, the DS permit number. So you don't know what the invert in the existing tanks is?
no.
Okay.
I think the survey was done in the winter, and they don't know exactly, at the time, the surveyor didn't know exactly where.
I understand.
Yeah.
I've done it. Don't know either.
All right.
I would say that could be addressed during DES's review, because you're gonna have to have all those inverts for that anyway.
Okay. And this is a comment that the board had about the 2-inch water line. That was reduced
Yep.
to 1 inch, so that's taken care of. He's looking same as the board. They're looking for the construction operation approval numbers, number 5, so that's been talked about. He wants the owners to verify that there's a 13.5-foot elevation difference between the existing utility lines, and that's something, just, we'll do that. Or the site guy will do it when
Yeah.
he's out there, so that's, I don't know if you need to add a note on a plan for that.
No,
It's just,
that's just,
I think it's just general good practice.
thank you, Steve. Yes.
Yeah. He's looking for the ADA compliant access to the front of the building, and he wants us to put spot elevations on it. And I don't feel like that's necessary, because I think the carpenter is gonna be able to build it on site, meeting those regulations, than me doing it with, if he has to make it longer, he'll make it longer. If it says on the plan it needs to be ADA compliant, he'll have to build it towards those standards.
Yeah, you got room to make it longer.
Right, and we don't know what the actual distances are. It might need to be 1 or 2 feet longer, it might need to be 6 inches shorter to meet the rules. I just think it's something that you build on site, and it's not something that
Yes.
you should be constrained by an engineer who's sitting behind his computer looking at paper.
It's not like you're using every inch you got for it. You got room to make it work.
There should be room. I just don't feel right putting actual elevations on the plan and making them stick to it when you get out there in the field and it can be modified or built better by the carpenter while he's out there.
Do you have a note about the ADA compliant ramp in here anywhere?
I don't, it would be on the first, would be a site plan if it's, and if it's not able on that one. I don't know, to me, it matters if it's ADA compliant. Oh, you know what? That ramp was approved on the first, for phase one. That's why it's not listed on this one. Phase one, when we had the building on the side, so I didn't address it here because it was already addressed.
Maybe you ought to put that,
I'll just put the
On the
same
ramp,
note, I'll
say
put the
existing
same
ramp.
note. Okay, all right,
right on the
Yep.
ramp itself, you know?
that works. All right, now he's talking about the stormwater management. He's asking us to lower, we had a cross culvert, a small cross culvert located this location here. And it had about a foot of cover and we wanted it lowered, so I lowered it, I lowered the inlet by about another foot and the outlet by about a half a foot, I believe, so it's been lowered. He's asking for spot elevations along the swale. So I added 3 spot elevations at the beginning and the end of the swale. Expansion of the detail for the precast concrete weir construction to specify the installation of an appropriate bedding material. That's been modified to add 6 inches of stone underneath the V-notch weir. Item 9, he's talking about the exterior lighting. We discussed this at the last planning board meeting, the light in the back of the building and the concerns with that. And I think that we would all just agree that it's for security purposes, it's only one light, and the board was fine with it.
I don't remember that. I believe you.
Now, it was probably one of the lengthier conversations
talking
besides
about
the
it.
drainage.
That was a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
You don't remember
Can
that
that be
stuff.
addressed in relationship to the people who are living in that home? To say, hey,
Where's the
let's
light?
put a smaller light bulb in there.
Well, what we've got is,
That's the light?
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest with you.
So-
What's this?
this is what the light's gonna look, we can take it off?
Just
On
put the
that
lights
side.
on the part where people are
Okay.
parking. You
All
don't
right,
need it
we
on
can
the
remove it
side.
then. All right.
I mean,
Nobody's gonna be on that side of the building for any reason.
Right.
Well, we had talked about security reasons. Well,
No, it's facing
that's what
down.
these are, there's no glare onto the abutting property. If you look, the light is up inside of this here, so the light goes down and at an angle. And if you,
facing down, yeah, it's
if you look at these numbers, this here is a 0.1 candle foot line. So that's, if there were no trees there, that would be the equivalent of 10% of what a candle would be 1 foot off the ground. That's how much light is at this point here. So theoretically, they were not gonna see any light trespassing onto their property at all. I think a lot of towns allow up to 1 or 2 foot, a candle foot on, going over the property. I don't know what Ware has, but I didn't look it up because we're not having any of it trespass onto the property, so I didn't think it was gonna be an issue. And we've got the trees there, but we can take the light off.
If they don't want the light, take it off.
Yep.
I don't see.
It's
it
fine with us if
being
you
an
want to.
Okay. Yeah.
Nobody's gonna be on the right side of the building.
There's no
Not even
doors
a
over
door
there.
or anything over there.
Right, that's
I
done.
understand that makes sense to have it.
Yeah, you're not, there's no drive behind it anyway.
Yep.
You know,
Nope.
But, you know, I think, you know, just as much as it is for security, it's also for somebody to live there.
Give the graffiti artist the light to work with.
Yeah.
All right, so we will remove the light. Item 10, is looking for a fence detail around the dumpster pad. That was added to the sheet. Should be right next to the left, Craig.
Oh, over there, okay. The other left. Yep.
Yeah. Finally, oh, he's talking about my last sheets that I have in my set are pretty much all text. You guys don't have copies of it, but it's stuff like
Yep, I've seen it.
construction phasing and temporary and permanent mulching and seeding, dust control, and that's put on the plan for, I call it courtesy reasons, so that the contractor doesn't have to look this stuff up. While he's out in the field, he can just say, all right, well, I've got dust issues, so what do I do? And there-
Well,
it's on the plan.
hopefully he looks at it and says, oh, I can't have dust issues.
Yeah.
Make sure he doesn't have them, not saying, oh, I got them, now what do I do?
When it pops out, it'll be on the plan. So, Keach Nordstrom was, they're looking for us to point out on the plan where these things are supposed to go, but there's no specific place for any of them. It's more like, if you need to do something, this is what you should do in order to take care of it. So, I can't add it onto the plans, because you won't know until you start construction. You start pushing dirt, and you start getting water going to a certain way, and you don't know how to deal with it, well, on the plan, it shows you how to put the hay bales in, and that sort of thing. So, it's more of a site-specific during construction type of notes. And that was their last concern. So I think we'll go back to the drainage outlet. I don't think we've really gotten any closer to a solution other than that they didn't comment on it. I don't know if they were directed to specifically look at that or not.
Yes, they were.
Okay.
They didn't comment,
So I guess what I'm gonna say, yeah, I'll let you say it, and if there's no comment, then I'm
There's no
assuming that
comment,
there's
no
not an
comment.
issue.
I called Steve about that when I
Okay.
went out. Hey, Steve. What do you think of Aaron Rodgers being a Jet? No, me too, okay. Hey, he's a Packer fan, we talk about things, okay? No, I talked to him about that pipe before you ever sent it to him, I think.
So I think we're looking pretty good. We've addressed more things than what were discussed at the last meeting, and I think the board was pretty happy with what we had, other than that outlet was the biggest concern. And like I said, we made some more changes based on Steve's review, additions, and I think you guys were in agreement with what I talked about. And I can make the changes that you guys want, or easy to do. So I'll leave it up to you guys.
Comments from the board? Guys are quiet. What about the existing structures that are out there?
Those are gonna be removed.
We had a note saying they're
Yep.
gonna be removed? They're not reloaded, they're gonna be gone?
Remove off the property, yeah.
Okay.
Those are going to my house for my four-wheeler.
I'll take one, I'll take one
Once
of
the
them.
building's built.
After the building's built.
I think I mentioned last time about silt socks rather than silt fence. Your legend says silt fence yet.
The legend does?
Yes. So you're gonna add the dimension to your zoning board variance note, you're gonna add a DOT permit number, you're gonna add a DES subsurface number, you're gonna add a wetland stamp, you're gonna change the silt fence in the legend to a silt sock. I'm just. I'm nowhere near ready for motion yet, so relax. We're gonna add the dimensions for the, you're gonna add dimensions from the
Radii.
same dimensions on the, I was at the wetlands yet. The 13.5 and the 15 point whatever on the site plan, putting on the grading plan also.
Yep.
The radius of the pavements, the return curve, et cetera.
And then add the ramp note, or label the ramp.
Label ramp, existing ramp. The only else I can think of, see real quick, like, is a couple trees behind the sign, would be pretty neat, and labeling the
Well, we
sign.
think we talked about that one.
Behind the sign.
I think that they're gonna do some specific landscaping in that area around it. Once they get the sign design, they're gonna incorporate landscaping with the sign.
Yeah, we want to make it look nice in front there, make it like inviting.
I don't think it's gonna be trees, but it'll be flowery or,
Something low, so it doesn't block the sign.
Well, I was thinking behind the sign. That way, when you see the sign, you're not looking at the big pavement of the building, kind of block it off, buffer it a little bit. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't know if I wanna put that on a plan to make them do that when it might not work out well with whoever's designing. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
There's a tree there, and then somebody's designing something, and it doesn't work with the, are there any landscape architects here? I don't want to offend anybody. So sometimes they're pretty particular with the way things are, and if you tell them that you gotta put a tree there, and they start yelling at you, why is there a big tree back there when I was gonna make it look really nice, so, I leave that up to them.
At the same time, I want something there. I don't know what we can say to,
I can just, whatever the note, let to be landscaped, with low, I don't know, low ground cover
you
or
have to be
shrubs.
low. I mean, you're behind the sign, you're not gonna block the sign with it. I don't care if it's a tree or it's a 60-foot beech tree or a 2-foot shrub, I don't care.
Okay, so we can put a note saying, landscaping or to be provided behind the sign.
Yeah, something like that. Am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
Anybody from the public like to comment? I will close it for public comment.
Ready for a motion?
I was reading this again. Okay. Yep, I'm ready.
I'll make a motion, we conditionally approve the site plan for Gutter Done at 701 Concord Stage Road with the following conditions. We need language to expand on the zoning board approval to include the setbacks that were allowed, encroachments that were allowed with the wetlands. We need a New Hampshire DOT curb cut permit on the plan, subsurface permit number on the plan. Add some text in the ramp, saying the ramp's existing. Or a little balloon around the proposed sign behind it, saying that there is to be landscaped with some, call it minimum 3-foot high vegetation or shrubs or something. Wetland stamp. And silt fence be changed to silt sock on the third page, third sheet. Yeah, and that you add the ZBA approved numbers onto the grading plan. I think that was it.
Second.
You missed, pavement.
Oh, yes. And the pavement corner radiuses be indicated, since it is intended to be paved.
Second.
Discussion? I just remember he was gonna add a note saying the existing buildings to be removed. That could be part of the
Yeah.
condition as well.
Yeah.
I forgot about that myself.
You get those changes to the office, and we don't record site plans, so you don't need a Mylar, but we want a real clean copy to keep in the file.
Will something like that work, like what you guys have got, is that clean enough?
Clean enough for me.
Yeah.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Congratulations. Relatively painless.
That's all.
You can tell who's folded plans before.
Hold a couple. Next item on the agenda is conceptual hearing. Welcome. Timothy and Jennifer Beckley, Beckley? Yeah, I guess so. Tax map 407, lot 92, 506 Mount Dearborn Road, to use the, they're not here. Okay. We're going to skip down to Kathy Bailey, another conceptual hearing. That must be her.
So, hi, my name is Kathy Bailey. I live at 35 Daniels Road here in Ware, and I operate a shelter for animals in the basement of my home. I've been doing it for about 5 years. I actually did come in front of the town 5 years ago and asked for permission, was given permission, and I needed that in order to satisfy the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture rules. They wouldn't give me a license to operate the shelter until I had that, so I had to have had it back then, the permission. And last year I decided to take a year off from the rules for the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture say that if you adopt out under 30 dogs in a year, then you don't have to have a license. So I knew that I wasn't gonna do more than 30 dogs last year, so I didn't renew my
You
license.
don't need a license
Yeah, if you don't adopt out
if
more
you're
than,
fostering 29 dogs. You don't
Yeah.
need a license.
you don't need a license.
That seems like an awful lot of dogs, doesn't it?
Yeah. The reason that
Okay.
they do it that way is because pet breeders fought, they wanted to make that number lower, but the breeders said, that's too little, too few, we shouldn't have to have a license. And so it wasn't the shelters that fought the decision, it was the breeders.
Well, the breeders are based on like the number of females they have or something, isn't it?
I
Instead of
don't
just-
really know all the
Yeah, I think
rules
it
for
is.
breeders, but I do know that across the board, anyone in New Hampshire having more than 29, so it's 30 or more dogs that you're transferring to the public, you have to have a shelter license. So,
Yep.
There's a lot of
And
dogs.
this all happens in your basement?
yes. So I didn't do more than 29 in the past year, so that's why I didn't renew my license. Now they're saying, okay, well, we need you to get the permission from the town again, because it's like a brand-new license.
Right.
It's not a renewal. This time I'm getting my license again. So for the Department of Agriculture, it goes from July 1st to June 30th of the following year. And so I'm a little bit late because you guys didn't have a meeting until now. And we have a website, we bring in dogs from the southern states and all over the country really, and Puerto Rico. And I have up to 6 dogs at a time in my basement, and I walk each of them at least 2 miles a day.
No wonder you're so skinny.
I take 2 at a time.
Okay,
so,
that helps.
Yeah. What else? We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and I have information here. We have a certificate of existence from the state of New Hampshire. Like I said, we're a 501c3. We are deemed that by the IRS, so we are able to collect donations, and the adoption fees are considered donations. We have a veterinarian, Dr. Christina Murdoch, and she's our veterinarian of record, and she comes in and she vets all the dogs and makes sure that they're healthy before they can be adopted. So we quarantine them, and in my basement, I quarantine them for 2 days. That's the law. You have to quarantine for 48 hours before the vet even sees them. Then the vet sees them and they get a New Hampshire health certificate before they're transferred to the public for adoption.
So when you say max with 6 dogs at a time, I mean, that's the absolute max you have at any time is 6?
Anytime
you have like 7 or 8?
I've had 10 at times, but usually it's no more than 6. Actually, I'm trying to cut back because it's a lot of work. I work a regular job. This is all volunteer. So I work from home, and I do this kind of on the side. And I'm trying to keep it under 4 dogs or fewer now, going forward. It's just, I'm getting older, and it's a lot of work. So-
Yeah.
What do you do with their waste?
I pick it up. I live on Daniels Road, which is a private road, so I just pick it up and throw it in the woods. I pick it up with bags. You can ask any of my neighbors, I pick up all dogs' poop, because if there's poop on the road, even if it wasn't one of my shelter dogs that did it, I pick it up anyway, because
I mean, the
my
waste in
dogs are
your-
gonna step in it.
I mean, the waste in your basement.
Oh, they don't usually go in my basement, but I use wee pads if there's puppies, then, you know, if I know that they're gonna have accidents, then I use wee pads, and it's all tiled, so I clean it up.
Yeah.
And we use, excuse me, when there's no dogs in the shelter, I have 4 kennels set up down there, plus I have crates as well. And when there's no dogs in the shelter, I use bleach, I bleach everything. But if there are dogs there, then I can't do that, so I use organic products, Simple Green and Method products.
You wouldn't know that she had a shelter there.
No, it sounds like he runs it pretty clean.
I've driven by plowing, and she's been out walking the dog.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
thank
not been
you.
a problem.
Yeah, and I've never had any complaints from any of the neighbors. The neighbor on if you're looking at my house, the neighbor on my left is far enough away, and their bedroom's on the other side. They said they never hear the dogs. And the neighbor on the right has 2 dogs of her own, and she doesn't care, so.
Are you on the lakeside or the other side of the road?
Lakeside.
Lakeside.
Any comments, questions, concerns?
No problem with it.
What's your solution for odor? I've got 2 hounds, and the house stinks.
I use, there's a essential oil.
Yeah.
It's called Five for Fighting, I think, Five Fighting.
Okay.
But it works really well to
Is that on the
eliminate-
animal or on the, on?
No, in a diffuser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I keep that going in the basement all the time. But just, you know, the Simple Green is really good to, oh, and also Nature's Miracle, because that has enzymes that
Yeah.
eats the biological matter.
Okay. Hounds are stinky.
Yeah.
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 Especially when they get out. They come back with porcupine quills and God knows what else.
Try a black lab with a brook.
So what do you need from us for the,
She needs a motion to approve it, and then we have to write a letter.
okay.
Just say so moved.
We approve.
Do I have a second?
Facility for
I'll second.
Hearts and Tails.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained?
Thank you
I
very much.
I don't know how you can do it. I don't, I really don't. I assumed you weren't working when you said you had 30 dogs a year. Oh, then you had a full-time job.
Yeah, well, actually, the average has been 100 a year before this last year.
You must have a quick turnaround if you only got 6 at a time.
Yeah, well, they usually get adopted within a week,
Oh,
sometimes
I know what it
2.
is, the dogs don't like her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I guess we'll move the church thing to some other time again, right?
Yeah, the second time, isn't it?
Yep, second time.
Yeah.
You want to move it out to the next meeting, or to next month?
Thank you.
could walk, right? Yeah.
So Naomi, have you heard anything from the church people at all? Because they were on the agenda, what, a month and a half ago or whatever it was?
They were,
First
and
meeting
I
in
talked to
June.
Tony, and then Tony said they thought it was not until June, and then Tony reached out and I gave him the last date, so I don't know. It must not have worked in his head.
Okay. I guess we won't worry about them.
Well, it's just a conceptual, there's no notices anyway, right?
So,
So, we don't need to extend, we don't need to do anything.
No.
No,
I'm not just gonna keep putting it on, though, I have to ask for it.
right.
So under other business, we have somebody in the audience, I assume he wants to say something to us?
With regard to the,
You were waiting for the church?
proposed,
Yeah.
I thought so, okay, that's what I assumed, but, okay.
We can't speak to anything on dealing with that unless they're here, right?
No.
No, correct. So, Mr. Pastor Bill had a very good suggestion about the master plan a month and a half ago. And I actually pulled mine out and read it a little bit a month and a half ago, and again today. I was trying to see what chapters would we want to update. And I said, well, it's probably easier to say what chapters do we not want to update. And I was like, how are we gonna say no to this one and yes to that one, and no to this one and yes to that one?
Problem with going through the process of updating, we don't have the data. The data is.
Oh, I don't think we can do it.
13 years old.
Right.
or more. But if you go to, this is a question for everyone to consider. I don't consider this a plan. This is a report. A plan is something you do. This is a recommendation of what we should do.
Well, that's all it can do. It can't force you to do anything.
Correct, but I'm just saying that we should not call this a plan, it should be called a report. Until we start doing actionable things, that's the plan. So the actionable table is on page 269 through the end. Those are the items that you would need to use to assess what chapters to evaluate.
You're talking about this pages, chapter 12.
269.
Yeah, it's chapter 12, it's the summary of chapter 12. All the
Implementation.
strategies.
Yes, I was having trouble saying implementation.
Yeah. So some of the things that I saw in specific dealing with the housing needs, the projections for our present population that were excessive than
Oh,
what
yes.
the reality are.
Yes.
So our growth has come to at least a steady, slower pace than we were experiencing between 1990 and 2000 and 2000 and 2010.
What's the current population?
Current population is
10,000.
9,072.
Been
And
there
in 2020, it was 9,092.
it's been that for 20 years.
We lost 20 people?
Yeah, I think must have gone to glory, I don't know, or moved out of town. But I think the framework for us to understand the overall suggestions that are, or recommendations that are summarized on those pages are what we should evaluate a chapter by. The information that is presented in each chapter, some of it is trying to prove a point as opposed to helping us be guided through. So previous conversation we had, and I said it to Chuck at that time, I said it talks about affordable housing right as a goal at the beginning. But you can't go by that, because when you get to the chapter on housing, on the summary page, the last chapter of the page, last page of the chapter, it says that those who filled out the questionnaire are opposed to affordable housing.
Right.
So the other question I had before us too concerning representation is 10%, or so less than 10% of respondents is what this is based on, as well as the gathering we had at John Stark. So is that a sufficient a number for us to evaluate whether this information is really about what we want?
How many
Or
people
what the
in town
town
vote?
wants? And I don't know if that's a normative thing for master plans to say 10% is a good number. I don't know the statistical representation, what makes it legitimate to say, yes, that's a good.
So how do they send out a survey?
Yeah,
they did.
And, because I know when I get the census, it's like, you either fill this out or we're coming to grab, put you in jail type verbiage on it.
That's not what
No.
this survey was.
No, definitely,
This survey was,
completely voluntary.
yeah,
Please return it.
Every chapter begins with, in the fall of 2003, the master plan survey was sent to all households and postal pages in the winter. A total of 3,274 surveys were distributed with 315 returns, for a response rate of 9.6.
Send out more surveys.
So
We
do
can't-
we have the survey?
I sent mine
Maybe
back.
the first thing
I
to
sent mine
start
back.
with is updating the survey,
13 other people did too.
Yeah.
Well,
because that's 20 years old now.
right. So, I asked, can I say that? I asked Naomi prior to the meeting, what happened to the 2018 review? And nothing came of it. I have the minutes and that are posted on our webpage.
What, 2018 review, what are you talking about?
There's a
review
state-
committee and it dissolved.
Oh, yeah. The selectmen had to, the voters said the selectmen had to make one, right? That committee?
We made one, yes, and then everybody.
So it still comes back to the issue of financing the whole project.
Right. Which is where I was starting with which chapters we want to talk about doing, so we can get a decent,
I mean, there's some things that are suggestive in here that we've already done.
well, there's a lot of things we've already
You know,
done.
we've got a new school, we've got a new safety complex that's recommended in here. Those types of things.
Well, if you start at page 267, we did the first one. We've done the second one. I don't think we did the third and fourth one. Anything about manufactured housing.
We got different numbers than I do. What's it say on that?
Up here?
Yeah,
No,
no,
bottom left, bottom right.
267.
267.
no, mine says 269. And that was a question I had based on what's online. There's a whole segment missing between 171 and 186 on the document online at MIA. At least that's when I tried to print it. It was missing.
One 186 is
And some of the-
cemeteries?
What's that?
Cemeteries? Is it 186?
171 to 186. It goes from list of historic buildings on 170, then 187 concerning those buildings. I don't know where those pages
Sorry,
are.
because they didn't copy well, because
I think those are these,
they're B-size sheets of paper.
Could be.
historic residential properties.
Yeah.
171,
So
72,
those aren't
73,
on the
74,
document.
75.
And all the maps that are referenced on the last, not there either.
That's only 77. There's
Must
some-
have-
Oh, you're right there. or
So
here.
you still got 8
It's the
pages
same
missing
with-
too.
Yeah, I still got 7 or 8 pages missing too, I guess.
Yeah. So, and then the other question I had, when was this ratified? And if this is posted online, it should have ratification dates on it.
Citizenship planning has a tool on their website.
I had a CD someplace. I don't know if I still have it or not.
I believe they're at SABC.org,
SNHPC,
and then you go to, I think you have to find the community first,
okay.
and then on the community, maybe it's data, I don't know, it might, I haven't been for a while. But they're the ones who did it, so it should be on their website.
Right. So when you look up your page of summaries, the actionables, or suggested actionables, you said
268.
267.
Thank you.
That's
Yes, 267.
What's the first thing? Regional concerns?
Initiate contact with town of Goffstown, yes,
And that's been done?
several times.
Okay,
Goffstown said, no,
okay,
no thank you, we're gonna slow the traffic down, we're not gonna speed it up.
okay,
We definitely revised the cluster regulations,
okay,
at least twice since this was done,
right?
at least twice.
Manufactured housing?
To my knowledge, we didn't do anything about manufactured housing.
Community loan fund,
Where are you?
that's the next one after manufactured housing.
Oh, to my knowledge, we haven't done anything on that.
Could I ask just a housekeeping? When did we get a budget?
You just don't-
We?
Yeah. When does planning board have a budget?
Oh, we don't have it.
No, but that's what it says, funding source, planning board's budget. So that's our
Haven't done that either.
volunteer time. I don't know. It's just a puzzle to me why they're suggesting there's funding when there's no funding, because we don't do that. Just an observation.
20 years ago, you might have wanted
Are you reading the same thing I am? Work with New Hampshire Community Loan Fund and state agencies to ensure manufactured housing parks and subdivisions use best management practices?
Yeah.
What's that to do with our budget?
No, look in the middle, funding source.
He's
Oh.
moved on.
It's-
This
okay.
next page.
It's
Okay,
in the same page.
okay,
Middle of the
yeah,
page.
ongoing.
It's in the middle of the
It's
page.
it's ongoing.
No, it's not ongoing.
It says it's ongoing.
Yeah, but code enforcement budget, they got
Oh.
a budget for that?
Code enforcement definitely has a budget. I don't think it includes that, though.
Multifamily housing,
Haven't done anything. Yep. That's gonna be in our budget one day. You can see that as
We
funding.
got 5
source.
items in the planning board budget,
burden on, we're dealing
all
with
over
that
the
right now.
place.
Accessory dwellings, right? The next one?
Yep.
Ordinance to ensure it does not discourage or unduly burden the residents in creating accessory apartments. Working on that.
Well, we did do that partly because we did change the special exception with the accessory housing.
Okay.
So that was changed a little bit. I think
That was
Well,
changed,
the ADU.
that was
that's
changed to
one.
coincide with state law.
that's beside the point.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter why we did it. Matter of fact, we did it.
Yeah, that's half done, right?
Yes.
Elderly housing,
Haven't done anything about elderly housing.
that has not been done.
Nope.
Not part of the agency.
So some of these others, so we only can address the things that are recommended for us to consider, right?
Yep.
So when it says Board of Selectmen, that comes your way. Funding existing Economic Development Commission. Do we have such a thing?
We would have for years.
We used to.
We used
Yeah.
to.
More cows.
Commercial entities that would deliver the most cost-effective dollars. That's economic development, which we don't have. I don't understand what this means. Develop strategies to enhance and connect the North Village, Chase Village, and Village Center.
It means someone who has no idea what where is like, is writing stuff down.
Oh, well, the other thought, because it's something that came up in here is sidewalks. And so I started thinking about, how do sidewalks fit into a rural setting? So in the town I grew up in, there's one sidewalk. It goes from the town center down to the high school. And that's because from the town center to the high school, everyone who lived on that road walked to school. And that's why it was there. So just driving down here tonight, I just started envisioning, where in the world would we put a sidewalk? There's no
Where it
room.
is.
And
By
it's
the middle
federal,
school.
and it's federal law that you maintain 365 days a year,
Right.
so the
Right.
highway department's gotta have plow.
Right.
I remember having that
Yeah.
conversation about
Yeah.
10 years
So,
ago, that we don't wanna
I don't
put any
think
sidewalks in
that's-
our subdivision regulations, because we don't wanna plow them.
Right.
I would say that
I don't think,
that falls under, I would say,
Pixie
No way,
dust
Jose.
and fairy
the
tales.
the way I don't think developing strategies to enhance and connect meant sidewalks. It meant the whole village district was gonna be from here to there.
But there's too many things in between.
That's what
that
we were
are
talking about.
established
We talked
as
about that several
commercial
times.
entities.
Never did anything, but we talked about it.
They connect all the village districts somehow, zoning
No,
wise?
just North Village, Chase Village, and Village Center.
High-speed
Yep.
rail.
Here we go. Monorail.
Monorail.
Well, then all I can say, I'll say this. It's a blessing living where I live. Because the power very rarely goes out. Because the
Us
power
too.
has to be on at the fire station. and
That's a good point. Yep.
So, we're the first, usually the first to get it back. So then we turn the page to zoning map, provide more commercial industrial zone land.
Great idea. That's a huge undertaking, but yeah, great idea.
So that's something, that's not been done.
No.
So,
I've said that 20 times that we should do something with the zoning map. The zoning map
Okay.
is an existing use map. It's not a zoning map for the future.
so that, the second one kind of goes with it, big box development. How do you prevent that or prepare ourselves for that?
No, it's the key.
Because I know from scuttlebutt, from people who know people with land, that Walmart wanted to put a distribution center on that property that just got logged. There's 100 acres there or so. But they wouldn't sell.
Oh, is that Isley?
Yes.
Good, good for them.
What a good place for it.
Integrated Town Center Plan, did that ever come off the ground?
Nope, never heard anything about it.
Cost of community services,
Yes, we tried 3 times. Couldn't get funding for it.
I think the next one, ordinance to expand opportunities for home business occupations, that seems to be normative. We didn't do anything, but it seems like,
We've done some little things.
Pandemic created that,
Yeah,
yeah,
because most people work from home, they can.
right. So that's really that's a reality, that's already happened,
Yeah.
without changes.
we changed some things, not many, but a little bit, tweaked some things in that. What you
Water.
wanted to do.
Water and sewer services in the central, the village center.
We have them.
Limited, but we haven't,
Well, it says examine the feasibility of expanding them.
Yeah,
not
sure.
That ain't gonna happen.
No.
There's no place to expand it, really.
Okay. Community facilities, develop and adopt a CIP annually.
We do that.
Woo-hoo, we did that one.
We do that one.
So, we only do part of it.
What do you mean?
What, are you talking?
Well, as far as I know, we're dealing with equipment. In here, it talks about this facility, the other town hall, stone building, the library. All should be part of that process.
They are.
Sure.
Okay. But I don't remember seeing that when it's been presented to us.
The library comes every year.
Does it?
Yep.
Okay.
And the town comes every year like, for,
I mean, but.
for
when you
building
need a
maintenance and
project,
stuff.
Only when needed, as
Yeah.
opposed to, okay,
It needs to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah.
right.
But, I mean, the library has the opportunity to come to us every year. They're,
Library's coming to the selectmen Monday, because they've got a big expansion there.
yeah.
Because that says Board of Selectmen and us.
It's not really a CIP practice, we appropriate the money and spend it all the same, there's really no savings,
Right.
nobody saves.
Okay.
No,
Well, just to be, because I think we had some issues with fundings for something for the library when they had their floods or whatever, right? Or there was another building that was being bought before the selectmen that needed a new roof or something. I can't remember what house it was.
That was,
In recent days, yes. But there was some other house that was considered, I can't remember the name of the house.
oh, in the Clinton Grove?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, was Clinton Grill.
The Academy?
Yeah.
Something else. Anyways.
Eastern Barnes,
Yes,
yeah, so it's.
East Weir Barnes. Impact fee ordinance.
We talked about it several times. You wanna know my opinion of that? It's too much hassle for what it's worth.
Okay. So as an
Because you're
example,
gonna-
like,
Because you're gonna end up, somebody does a subdivision, you're gonna get X number of dollars, and it's gonna be earmarked for a certain
right,
site,
For X amount of years.
for X number, for 7 years, I think it is.
You have 6 years to spend it, 7 years it goes back.
Right. So you have to take care of it, you gotta,
yep.
somebody's gotta watch it,
Hit it.
and if you use it for something wrong, you're gonna get in a lot of trouble, just ask Londonderry.
Or dairy,
Well,
or, yeah,
so as an
Londonderry
example,
really got in trouble.
yeah.
I had given, not the last, well, previous meeting, I gave Bruce, Bedford's accessory, detached accessory dwelling unit codes.
Yep.
And they have impact fee ordinance.
Oh, yeah, they sure, well, yeah, but you're talking about a town that has how many town employees in the planning department taking care of all that stuff,
Yeah.
too. We have Naomi, nothing personal, you understand. That was not meant as being bad.
Okay,
But but Bedford has 3 people in the planning department, maybe 4 now.
Right. Adding full-time staff to the fire department and rescue squad.
That's been done.
We got 2 or 4,
8,
8,
he set out on a 4-year plan.
right.
So we
Correct.
accomplished that.
Library, town hall, stone building, obviously it's being done, right?
Stone building was much work done on that, right?
There's been some work done, there's been some work done on each of them, I guess, not a lot, but.
Yeah. Well, we just got new bathrooms in the old town hall, right?
We get new, those are heat and AC.
Yeah.
And a roof on here not long ago.
Right. And the old town hall's been painted 5 times since I've been here.
Flint Grove's been painted 3 since I've been.
Yeah. Road management improvement program, I think that's,
I think we did that, didn't we?
although we have some
We got-
classic complaints from various people.
People got to complain about everything you do.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Funding to improve the 77 and 114 junction, 149 in Peacock Hill, and 114 in
149, 77, that's a state function.
They're all state roads.
Peacock Hill. I think that's been solved.
Yeah, long
Put
time
the tree,
ago.
you put the sign on the tree.
What, one way?
We put it on
Yeah,
a post
do not-
because they had a fit about it being on the tree.
Oh,
Do
Well,
not,
there's-
do not enter because it's a blind, when you skip across that corner, it's a,
yeah.
it's a block.
Yeah.
Well, coming from Deering now, there's no excuse to go into the woods anymore, because you can see the turn, because Pete took all those trees down.
Right.
Well, he sure did, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
So your son can't hide anymore.
No, he doesn't, he was fed up with the pine trees. They were walking out of the house just after that storm in March, and one went down, and just barely cleared the chicken coop. And the kids were outside, said, this ain't happening anymore, those are gone. Then she came in,
They're gone.
they're gone.
I noticed that.
I'm not sure about this Old Francis Town and Low Road concern.
The culvert,
Culvert?
Is it culverts?
yeah, they're on the state.
They're on the list. They're-
Okay.
And they,
And the Shady Hill and Thorndike convergence had a stop sign, then the stop sign's gone.
There's a yield sign there now.
Right. Which seems to be more
appropriate for the
appropriate
intersection.
for the intersection, because I think when nobody stopped. that, you know,
So it sounds like they took a revenue source away from the police department.
Yeah. Require developers to participate in roadway improvements caused by, that's already happening, right?
No.
What does it read again?
Amend site plan regulations to require developers to participate in roadway improvements caused by new development.
Site plan regulations have nothing to do with new development for,
So,
That would be
Well,
that'd
subdivision.
be
Portland
it should be
Estate.
subdivision regulations, not site plan
so
regulations.
this isn't necessary.
At the same time, no, we didn't do anything. That's back to your impact fees.
Yeah. Establish standards for levels of service for roads and intersections in the board's site plan regulations.
Cross out the word site and put subdivision in there, yes, we did.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
it's in subdivision, not site plan.
Yes,
Okay.
there's your sidewalk thing coming up next.
Okay. Develop a sidewalk improvement plan for village center.
Who did this plan?
So, that's, like,
Okay.
Not
probably,
realistic.
if we call it a bicycle path instead of a sidewalk, you don't have to maintain it, right?
I don't know.
Well,
I'd
that
soon
might,
take
that might
out.
appeal, I mean, but that can't, we can't do anything with that because it's a state road, right? I
Right.
mean, we can plow, we can't plow snow across it. We're not supposed to. But that's a state road that we can't,
We couldn't even get them to agree to let us put a actual crosswalk across.
right?
Oh, you wait for, see when I heard that.
I mean, I've contemplated that from our one property to our property across the street as far as putting a
We'll
crosswalk.
put one, but they just won't recognize it.
Yeah.
And they don't want the signs really. We still painted lines, so
Right.
hopefully somebody pay attention to the kids, but
There you go.
they won't recognize it.
This is Board of Selectmen. Establish and appoint a Heritage Commission.
Yeah, it's called inactive.
Inactive.
That's back when,
Historical Society doesn't fall into that category?
No, they're their own.
Okay. Demolition ordinance, delay demolition request to demolish historic properties.
So when someone asks to take down a building,
Back when Chip was here, I remember somebody was gonna demolish some barn someplace and he had somebody held it up for 2 months or something like that.
we have to post it to a public hearing. So that they can then,
Isn't there a 30-day
That's what she said.
requirement in the zoning ordinance?
Yeah. Well, the suggestion in here is 50.
50 days?
I think it said that. Or no, maybe it's 50, or anything over 50 years old. That's what it is.
Over 50 years old. Jeez, that's not very old.
No,
No.
it's not.
Not historic.
North Ware Village Historic District. I think that was contemplated and got voted down and never made the ballot.
So if local community support can be obtained, that was not obtained, so we moved on.
Right. Schedule and hold a joint meeting of Planning Board and Conservation Commission
Have
to
several.
review progress of open space plan.
We have had several.
Several. To deal with open space?
Yep.
Okay.
We had a subcommittee dealing with open space.
Identify priority conservation lands that could be donated to acquired, that doesn't make sense, that could be donated to,
you know, the town's acquired a bunch of conservation land between then and now, so.
yes, that's happened.
That's for sure.
Natural resources,
They've got a inventory on their website.
Rural Conservation Overlay District, wetlands, land planning ordinance, aquifer protection ordinance, floodplain ordinance.
What
Nothing,
does it say about the natural resource?
This is under
in
that
that-
chapter, natural resources,
There's an aquifer protection ordinance in the
yes,
zoning.
that's what I thought,
There's a floodplain ordinance in there too.
but we haven't changed it.
right.
We haven't evaluated the effectiveness of any of that.
So I've got a question.
We have changed the rural conservation overlay district, and we changed the wetland, I wouldn't call it land planning, a wetland.
With the buffer and
We have a
setbacks, we didn't
wetland
have
conser-
that then.
Yeah, we have a wetland conservation overlay, or not an overlay district, but we have a wetlands setback and buffer now that we didn't have before.
Great.
So we didn't do anything with the aquifer and the floodplain. We may have changed the floodplain to adopt the FEMA regulations at one point in there.
So the question I have pertaining to this type of water issue, when the church came to this board to have a change of use and your site plan, the question is where you're putting snow and are you gonna salt the property? And we said, well, we won't salt the property, but the property gets salted anyways.
The church lied to us?
No, the state does it for us.
Oh,
Right, I knew where you were going with that.
You don't know how, the ice that builds up in front of our parking lot there, as well as up at the church, is all state salt runoff. So I've got two spots down, up on the church level that never freeze because of the runoff off the road. And that's the place the turkeys hang out every Thanksgiving. Because they're getting their salt. As well as an oak tree there, but primarily salt, that's what that brings them back every single time. I plow that, I can have 10 inches of snow, plow it, turkeys will be there the next day. Because they're getting the salt off the road. So I happened to talk to.
Pre-salted for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I happened to talk to,
the timing is right.
he's putting up a new sign across the street from me concerning the Piscataqua River. And I'm thinking, we have this watershed that we're supposed to be protecting, and the amount of salt that's put on. So the attitude right now is that the solution to pollution is dilution.
Yeah,
So.
that was the attitude 30 years ago. It's progressed dramatically since then.
Correct, but I'm just saying that there are some communities who will recognize this is a low salt area or no salt area because of the aquifer or whatever's there. But we have these
I think the selectmen could probably do that and force the
Bridges.
state not to put so much salt down, but
bridges, that bridge, which I'm not sure, I don't think they shut the spinners off when they go over the bridge. So, and we've already had the expansion joints repaired once, and they need to be repaired again, because
that John Connor Road Bridge?
No, my bridge.
Oh, on
114.
114, yeah, yeah. But
Because that's what wakes up everybody in the house.
that's a state road, state bridge. I mean, we could probably request they not salt it, but I don't know if they'll listen.
But I'm just saying that, does that fall within the confines of what these types of ordinances would be looking at? How do we protect that river? How do we protect it
I
all
think
the
they're
way?
gonna bring public safety in on the other side, you're gonna have a hard time
Correct.
fighting it.
Yeah, it's just an observation.
That year they cut way back on, on DOT, and they had that huge lawsuit on 93,
Right.
what came of it.
There's only about 3 towns that I know of that pay attention to low salt or no salt areas. Most of them,
The problem is now, everybody's got to go during the storm.
right,
They don't have the tires, training, whatever the case
Right.
may be. So really, every town has a black road policy, even if the policy doesn't read black road. And when you go from a black road to a snowpack section at dark, it's a hazard now. And it's a difficult thing to navigate, because it's understandable, you don't wanna pollute the wells, but 10 o'clock at night and you're on the way home, you're on dry black pavement, and then you hit a patch of hard pack that wasn't salted, because lawsuit.
Right, right. Well, I know I lost a ball joint on Reservoir Drive going to the fishing derby, because this driveway.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
And I didn't see it. Why is it all wobbly all of a sudden? Shoreline protection standards.
DES took care of that for us.
Yeah.
Yes. Agricultural areas and encourage land owners to participate in land conservation programs.
It's current use, ain't it?
Sounds like,
Current use. I was
sounds like
fond
current.
of-
Charlie did that by selling his farm to the Conservation Commission.
Right.
Okay. I don't know what this means. Feasibility of establishing a local transfer of development rights program to protect farmlands, prime wetlands, and other valuable resources.
It's a great idea. Where if X property is out in the middle of nowhere, can get 6 lots, you take those 6 lots and put them someplace else.
Okay,
Oh, I
so it's like that
That-
one lot that's,
I've only ever tried to do it once.
Romeo talked about, the house that's got a cabin on it and it's landlocked,
see. No, it's the land version of a carbon offset.
right? Is that what you say? Would that be similar to say, well, okay, we're gonna take that lot and make it part of whatever's out there.
No, I'm saying, I'm proposing a subdivision on X road, I got 20 acres, I'm in rural agriculture, I can get 4 lots, right? But I got 20 more acres in the middle of nowhere, another 20 acres, and I get 4 lots. I'm gonna put 8 lots over here, where it's closer to town, and save this 20 acres as all open space. So you transfer the development rights,
Great.
so they're not in the middle of nowhere, and they're in town where reduces sprawl, protects farmlands, all that kind of stuff all at the same time.
Identify and develop strategies to protect Ware's prime wetlands. Doesn't DES kind of do
Yeah,
that
say,
for us
that's
too?
DES, ain't it?
State, federal, private.
Where's prime wetlands aren't very prime, for number one, according to the Conservation Commission. The only thing DES does for prime wetlands is not give you a permit to disturb them. That's about all DES does. They don't have any buffers or anything, so the town does more than the DES does to protect them. 'Cause we have a 25-foot buffer.
Well, DES has also started, since this was done, that, if you're gonna, in development, if you're gonna lose 2 acres of wetlands, you gotta buy, you gotta protect 2 acres somewhere else.
Well, they quit doing that now too.
Oh, did they?
Now you gotta give them money,
Oh.
so they can buy land someplace else.
Oh.
So the planning, so based on what Naomi said earlier, the Conservation Commission must have identified those prime wetlands.
Oh, yes, yes, they are in the DES website, they're all over the place, they're easy to find.
Existing and future land use, develop a growth management ordinance with development phasing.
Done.
Done. Draft revisions of village district.
To include SMART?
I don't know what's smart growth principles. There's referenced this several times in here, there's not a definition.
That was a catch-all phrase back then,
Yeah.
in the early 2000s.
Buzzword.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't remember exactly what it meant either.
Okay. Revisions to the village district zone to include smart growth principles. That's on there twice now.
Must have really wanted that done, huh?
Yeah. Incorporate performance and design standards into the town zoning ordinance and planning board site plan regulations to curb sprawl on Route 114.
Duck Pond Village.
We didn't do any of that, I don't believe. We don't really have enough. Well,
But if the
But there's no sprawl right now.
yeah, logically, if the population of the town is shrinking,
I would see sprawl as something that every little, like, for instance, as downtown here, every little nook and cranny is full.
Right,
We subdivide anybody over whatever.
There's nothing to subdivide here.
right.
But, you know what I mean, that's what I think of sprawl, like taking, so we have this big emptiness going up over the hill,
Right.
then we go past Country 3, we kind of a little emptiness, and then it kind of.
Yeah, the only thing that you could possibly think is like,
But those farms aren't being sold off to put in Home Depots or whatever.
Duck Pond could be something, because that's on 114, but that was all like,
But that's, yeah. but you
in,
don't- you
it's
wouldn't
not long on
think-
114.
Yeah, or
They didn't use the
Portland's-
frontage on 114 to
Right, or
create
Portland
it.
Estates, the same thing, you
Right.
don't, other than the 2 houses at the bottom of the hill, you don't know what's really up the top of the hill. Right. Rezone parcels identified on the future land use map, where appropriate to allow for needed commercial and industrial growth. I don't know what that map looks like.
You don't have the map, or you?
It's not on the document online. It says, there's a blank page, and it says, insert map here.
Which page number is that? Which page number is that?
This page left intentionally blank. So if we do just a general report based upon what we just discussed to say, these are the items that were actionable or recommended that have been accomplished, and these are the items that we believe are no longer necessary, and these are the items that we would like to consider.
Yeah, existing land use.
We want a future land use, right?
You're gonna get close.
I think I'm close. Ooh, that's close now. Nope. Is that it right there, coming up?
Page 259 in this one.
Missed. Yeah, future land use.
257, so close enough. What are we looking at? Land to be,
Future for development for commercial.
is that this?
Is it the red? Commercial and industrial growth.
It's like this. I don't see what much more was created.
The only thing I can see difference is this gateway transition overlay zone,
Which is where? That's referenced several times.
roughly 200 feet wide, parallel to 114. From Goffstown, from New Boston into Three Corners roughly. Looks like they planned a business park up here too, where Duck Pond is. I don't see where we have any proposed zoning changes
So-
except for this gateway transition thing. Which is what everybody I've heard, doesn't want that.
Right. So, yeah, so how do we maintain the
The only
rural
opportunity to do
community
anything is like in here.
by having small
Back here.
cottage industries the way we are doing it right now?
Too far off the main beaten path.
House development?
This isn't, it's right on 114.
Okay, I know the guy that owns this.
Yeah.
He'd be willing to do something.
What was that? Sorry.
I said that the industry is being developed through cottage industry as opposed to big industrial complex. Except for B&B Lane, which is really across the street at, what do they call it, Colbert's, is that what it's called? There's some development there, but,
There is some development going on that nobody knows about,
right.
trust me.
Well, you had to deal with such development the other night. Monday night at the selectmen's.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess, just to summarize what we've just reviewed is to, it's the place to start and just put it on and evaluate what those are that we should put our time into. So if our concern is housing, well, I'm not sure how that works, what affordable housing is anymore. Because we can't afford to build it without funding from elsewhere, even in incentives for contractors to build affordable housing.
I disagree.
I mean, my father-in-law's brother just moved into 55 in Epsom, brand new units.
Hmm?
And they're not subsidized, you have to buy them. It's not like rent-free or whatever, or Section 8, whatever. But that's like the third such community in that town.
But it isn't the town that got them in there either.
No,
The guy that built it was,
but the town permitted it.
yeah, the town permit, and I can't believe we wouldn't.
Right, if the contractor came to it, but I don't think there's any contractors looking at Ware to say there's enough population to do that. Even though the document's saying that we're on the verge of all these baby boomers retiring and needing a place to go, or when they get to be old enough that they need care, are we permitting the ADUs or the detached ADUs to come along and help in that? Or are you going to just give grandma and grandpa the back room and they cohabit with you as opposed to having their own little living space?
When we draw you a map, once upon a time in 2023, something happened. Okay.
I was looking at some church documents and I had to keep pinching myself to make sure I knew what year it was, because it was like it was using 1623, and it's, well, it is 23 right now.
Can I rate this thing? With what? With these things? Not that.
I don't have presets.
I assume it was worth it. Anyway, I'll draw a map. Acres, 3 acres zoning, I'm allowed 10 lots, right? Pretty simple. Instead of doing 10 lots,
FYI, in New Hampshire, a 10 lot is assumed to be 10 4-bedroom houses.
4-bedroom houses?
Yeah, when you get a subdivision approved, the DS in New Hampshire, it's for 4 bedrooms.
if you get lots.
Right,
I didn't do lots.
okay, but I'm just saying, for lots,
Right.
it's assumed to be
A 4-bedroom house.
4-bedroom house, so that'd be 40 bedrooms.
So we had 30 acres. We built a little road, 800, 900 feet long, with 2-bedroom detached condominiums, 9 of them. 2 bedrooms, 9 of them. You don't need a community well, you still have one well. You can do 2 leach fields per side. And we had a house out here. The guy wanted to have a monster, his wife wanted a monster, so he lived there. But everything else is open space. No lot lines.
So that's clustered home.
No lot lines.
No, condo.
Condominium,
Oh, it's a condo.
detached condominium. So we had roughly 28 acres of open space, well, 25 acres of open space, and these are jammed in, 25 feet apart.
Yep.
So your density, your road cost are much, much, much lower than 250 feet of frontage.
Right. So that's like my hometown, they put condos around the golf course.
Very similar, yes.
It was all golf course land to begin with, but they developed.
This is the golf course, very similar. But instead of having 250 feet of frontage and 2-acre lots, you have a house. You don't own the yard, you don't own the driveway, and they're gonna be sold for roughly around 300,000. 2 bedrooms, so you don't have to worry about kids too much. That helps the school out. The other thought I had was, instead of saying every lot has to have 4 bedrooms, you have 20 acres, 5 acre zoning, you got 4 lots, you got 16 bedrooms. Why not have 8 2-bedroom houses instead of 5 4-bedroom houses? In a cluster situation. That's the only way you're gonna get.
If those are all single-level places,
Yes.
that would take care of our 55-plus community or our seniors.
Their basement.
Put a
their ones
clubhouse
for-
in the end of the driveway.
Yeah. That would work. You get your density, your density's not up for the whole tract, but it's all jammed into one corner. It really is jammed. I mean, it's not gonna be ugly, but it's not gonna be pretty.
So
Can't be any worse than what they did across
what
from the
are,
villa.
what are our,
No, it's not gonna be worse than that.
what are our current regs on, like a clustered home with open land?
Can't do that.
As far as elevations are concerned for the land?
I had to get 4 variances to do this, so I'm sure we'd have to get 3 or 4 here to do the same thing. That's the other problem.
So you can't, so what I'm saying is that open space on the 30 acres there can't be a mountain? Or it can't?
In
be-
our zoning, it can be.
It can, okay.
This is a private road also, 'cause it's condominium, so it's not a town road. The problem is that the engineering cost, that was astronomical, 'cause I had to go to 2 zoning board meetings, 2 architecture review committee meetings, 4 planning board meetings, and
So
miscellaneous other meetings, but
I think we should draw up a document that says these are the things that were presented in the master plan from 2004 that have been implemented. These are those that have not. And the ones that are not need to be reevaluated. And we need funding in order to accomplish that. And write that letter, like I said before, to the selectmen to say, we're behind. We tried in 2018, didn't work.
you're asking for money to reevaluate this one chapter?
That one chapter is a summary.
I realize that, but it's the summary from what the information is back in the other 11.
Right.
So you're gonna assume nothing in the other 11 changed?
No, everything's gotta change. This whole thing needs to be redone, not just one piece at a time.
Okay. Now I follow what you're saying. You lost me for a minute there.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I mean, because we've tried to make an attempt to get a grant to have the work done. It didn't work. We presented that to the selectmen, it didn't work. We presented it
To the voters
to
here.
the voters, it didn't work.
Right.
So, I guess the question comes to bear as to, it's recommended that these things are reevaluated or redone every so many years. Is there a penalty for not doing so? So if there's no penalty for not doing so, if we're coming up against a wall all the time, until we get a new plan, I wouldn't even put this on the website. This plan is outdated, it doesn't,
Well, it's the only plan we have, so.
correct, but it doesn't help us. Because it's, again, in my opinion, it's a report, not a plan.
Well, I don't disagree that it's a report, not a plan. It's called a master plan and all the RSAs and all those kind of things, so we're gonna use that terminology.
That's fine.
The other thing to remember here is there was a plan in 82, there was a plan in 86, there was a plan in
Right.
90, there was a plan in 94, there was a plan in 2002, then there was a plan in 2005, and then we quit.
Well, I'd like to know what was wrong with the 95 plan. It was just that, it was just eliminated.
Yeah, they just got rid of that.
So I don't know.
We're back to the point where I don't think we can ask the selectmen to, or the voters to give us money to update the whole thing.
So then we need to assess what's the value we want to put into. To say we want to update this part of our master plan.
So is the survey that was sent out that 10% available?
Yeah, but that was,
Well,
Oh, it's built into the document.
Oh, it is.
All the questions, if you read through the document, at the beginning of every chapter, the questions that deal with that chapter are there.
So you just have
And
to
the
figure out how to
And the
get that.
stats are there.
Okay.
So you could take it apart that way and get the questions, but it's still.
20 years old.
Number one, it's 15 years old, 13, 12 years old. So the data's off. And some of the information in each chapter is more supporting evidence to say this is valuable, this is why this is valuable, as opposed to what do we do with the information? And as a result, there are summaries at the end of the chapter, as I alluded to earlier, concerning housing, that affordable housing is a goal, part of the goal stated at the beginning of the document. But the people who responded said, no, we don't need affordable housing. And when we look at affordable housing, you look at workforce housing, you know, so I don't, I guess my problem is I've never owned a home. As pastor, I've had a house given to me, okay? So my son can't afford to buy a home in this town. I can't even think about buying a home in the town I grew up in. And then just a little three-bedroom Cape was $350,000 10 years ago. And when we're building homes in the developments we're building that are 4, 5, I mean, the
Seven.
one up on Sugar Hill Road is $699.
Yep.
Can you afford that?
Not in this lifetime.
For sure time.
Yeah.
Not in this lifetime, no.
But after I win the lottery.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't understand how we got into this problem, and then, not to say that we have a deference to a certain type of people, but a person who's gonna afford that type of house generally brings some expectations for services,
Well, but the,
right? Whether it's plowing, whether it's, I
Garbage.
need all my trash picked up, I need, you know, I don't know. I can't comprehend that. We almost hired Killian to take our trash. And I said, oh, it's how lazy do you get? You know, and we get a pickup truck, throw it in the pickup truck, go to the dump, whatever.
but that is, the cost of the housing is driven by demand, for the most part, right? And
Supply.
partially supply, right?
Lack of supply.
Lack of supply. in this
So,
case.
so
Yeah.
that's true now, yes. Ultimately, you know, when you've got people in California selling their $4 million house, coming out here and buying up, you know, they're paying cash for stuff.
To pittance compared to what they
But,
sold.
so what's driving that cost up is people are actually able to afford it, right?
That's not the only thing driving it up.
It's 70% of it.
No.
Sure, because if nobody was buying the place, right?
Cost of materials is going way out of whack too.
Sure, absolutely, but still, they're selling these houses for
They're making a lot of money.
outrageous.
Some of them aren't making a lot of
Oh,
money.
no doubt.
That's what I'm saying, they can't drop their price because they're not
Well,
gonna build
I
houses.
get that, but ultimately, the houses are still selling. Much slower today than they were 6 months ago,
Yeah.
or a year ago, because I
Well,
mean, 6 months, a
that's the
year
interest
ago,
rates.
you'd put a
It
for sale
depends.
sign up.
It's dependent on what people are looking for in the moment.
Sure.
And-
You know,
and
because
well,
my
that's
daughter
it.
just was planning to buy a house on Walker Hill, closing in 2 weeks. And that went on the market, in 5 days it was off in market. You know?
A lot of it is demand because the land itself is expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not gonna buy a lot for $100,000 and put a $200,000 house on it and sell it for $300,000.
And we
You're not gonna do it.
There wasn't the demand there, you wouldn't have $100,000 lot.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And
So-
and they're selling.
So the documentation that concerning housing in here is all responsive to the demand. From 90 to 2000, this place went ballistic. For housing, new people moving into town, et cetera, et cetera. So the repercussions of that, because the majority were under 40. So we now have the repercussions that we got a new middle school. We got a new elementary school. We got a new high school. Kind of in that same time period. You know, even the high school was 86, but about that same time period. Because that age group was the predominant focus. And we had, at that time, the development of some of our sports fields. Heineken wasn't around in the 80s, right? I don't think so. Naomi? Heineken wasn't around in the 80s.
Yeah, it would have been shortly, it would have been really.
Yeah. Carrington?
Bolton wasn't.
Bolton, no, I know Bolton wasn't. But those types of facilities weren't needed at that time. But again, we don't have a lot of land that we're selling either. That people are talking about that, for that matter.
And part of that is because the price of a road is ridiculous, so you can't build a road to build 250 feet of road for a lot.
Right.
And you can't build a lot's not worth any money.
Yeah, and that's the part that, I mean, that kind of thing comes back to our needing to clarify private roads and building on private roads. Because I know one young couple who bought property on, I don't remember what it's called, not Abijah Bridge, but down by Abijah Bridge, and it wasn't buildable, because it was on a private road and didn't have what it needed. And they put it back on sale and it's already under contingent, because of, nobody's doing their homework. So,
No, I got a problem.
anyway, sorry.
You feel better?
I feel great.
Okay.
It's helpful to know that some of these things have been accomplished, as opposed to, you know, like I asked the last time, where does this come into play when we are working? Is it something we just put in the back of our head, oh, this fits this need, and we should do this? But if we're not apprised of that vision, how are we gonna pay attention to this? That's why I started reading, and I said, wait a minute, every chapter begins and ends the same way. Everything in between is all fluff. So I stopped reading the fluff and read the beginning and the end. And I started to learn and understand what the people wanted at that time.
You
And
thought, or what the reports
What
said
10%
they
of the
wanted.
people wanted?
what 10%, and that's the other problem that we have, is that eventually, if this is gonna be reviewed properly, I think we would need to set a standard by saying, we need 30% participation at the minimum.
Well, how many people vote every town meeting? What percentage of the population?
A lot more than 10.
I don't know.
Not a whole lot.
Not only, we got 10,000 people in this
People
town,
got
and we got
1,200 people vote.
1,200 people vote?
Yes,
Yeah, but you only have 6,000 registered. You only have 6,000 registered,
Out of the 9,000.
almost half. They all get afraid they might get picked for jury duty if they, that's not how they do it anymore, they pick them in driver's license, so.
Right.
They used to, yeah.
Did they?
They used to tell you to start with the 12th last name, and for every 35th name you had to put on the sheet, so you started with the registered and started at 12, and that was the first name. Then you go down like 35, and that's the next name, you're down 35 more. That's how they used to do it. Now they pick the
I think we should try to pick 5 or 6 chapters and say, we want to do these next year.
Well, we know we don't have to review 12.
Right.
Because that's the summary.
Right. But all the other ones need reviewed, really.
One is
Yeah, one doesn't need reviewed.
the introduction, we don't need to do that.
Regional setting doesn't need to be changed either, for that matter.
Region, number 2 doesn't need to be done, right?
Nope.
Vision and goals, that's,
3 through 11 need looked at. In my opinion.
so what if we just start with 3, 4, and 5?
How about we talk about it in 2 weeks? Bruce has to go, Naomi had a late night, that's why I said let's talk about it in 2 weeks.
I got kids. Need you fed?
I'll move we adjourn.
A second.
Discussion, Ray's still a voting member. All in favor?
Aye.